Well, contents in the front, Amy.
Good evening. It is 5 o'clock. We are back in session at our work sessions for considering ARP funding. And our first presenter at 5 o'clock is Jeremy Sinko, our sanitary engineer. You're on.
Evening, everyone.
Hi, Jeremy.
I got a handout here for...
You said you had 5, and I have 6 here. Is it 5 or 6?
Me. Me again.
I have 5.
Okay, so one of these is going away?
Correct.
Okay.
That was the Grainger Lakes, the last one.
Got it.
All right. Well, I guess we could start with our first project here on the first page. Is we're looking to install a fixed-based water meter reading system. Estimated cost at $6 million, and we can get started early spring of 2022. Basically, this project will allow us to, after we install 3 to 4 antenna on our existing water towers, and we also have to change out about 13,000 MXUs or meter transmission units, which would send the signal from the meter to our office. So instead of having our personnel drive the water routes and collect the meter reads through the through their transmitter at the car, we can get those meter reads straight from the office. One of the benefits to this is that we will be able to have our we'll be able to understand if a customer's has a high water reading one month. Right now we read every 2 months or every other month, and this will allow us to identify if there's a spike in usage. We can notify the customer in real time, as opposed to the delay of when we actually do the reads.
Would this eventually reduce staff or the need for replacement or retirement?
Over the years, we've kind of reduced staff from 9 meter readers down to 6 currently, and we're also down 3 meter readers just due to attrition there. We would keep those employees employed, and that would be to continue our asset management that we have to complete with the EPA. For instance, we're supposed to be exercising every one of our valves once every 5 years, so that'll free them up to do that. We have meter changeouts that need to be done on the commercial side, so that'll also free them up to do stuff like that. We will still need to go out to houses, and get some meter reads if there's a bad read or meter malfunctioning. So we will still need to get out to the houses, but it'll greatly reduce that effort.
So, Jeremy, back to Commissioner Swedick's question. There would be no reason to have 3 meter readers performing meter reading functions, so you would redeploy those assets.
Correct.
To other functions.
Yep.
There would be, in effect, a savings there of not having to employ somebody to do those other things.
Correct. Yeah, so at full staff, we would have 6 employees, and they would be able to get to other tasks that they haven't been able to get to just due to this.
Okay.
To be clear, though, it would really not it'd be a minimal or marginal reduction in staff then, correct? Because you'd be just reassigning.
Correct. There would be no reduction in staff. We would just reassign them.
The project itself eliminates job duties.
Correct.
Right, yeah, reassign.
So this system would be, and if we continue down, I kind of mirrored this to match your scorecard. The fixed base meter system will be in place indefinitely. As far as other available funding, we could get funding through an OWDA loan. As far as a multi-agency benefit, this would benefit customers basically throughout the county and all political jurisdictions that we do have water utilities in. There is continued operation cost of about $50,000 per year, and that's the typical annual software maintenance that allows us to, if we have bugs in the system or to get newer updates to the program.
But Jeremy, are you paying a software fee now for the current software to drive around and collect?
We are, correct.
So do you have any idea how much that would be?
I'd have to look into that number for you.
Because, really, the impact is the...
Correct. The impact to the community served here, that would allow our department to help identify and notify customers, water leaks, excessive usage in a timelier manner. It benefits our personnel being able to get out into the field and perform these valve exercising. A lot of times when we don't exercise these valves, sometimes they start leaking, and the more you move them, the better you're off. So. This job will also, like I said, it will allow us to provide a better customer service to our customers. And we have about just under 19,000 water customers that would affect. So, was there any questions regarding the fixed base?
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
I was just curious about the MXUs. Does that change out an internal with current staff, or the price includes subcontracting that work?
That'd be a subcontracted workout, just due to the being 13,000 that would have to get changed out. That would be something that we would contract out, and that is included in this cost.
6 million, okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how long it'll take to complete the project?
We are thinking probably in the 6 to 9 month range.
And Jeremy, are you planning to replace, you said you're down 3 employees, are you going to replace those 3 employees at this time? Or?
If we can get those positions filled, we would.
So how are those transmission units powered? Are those like tap off the
I think there's an internal battery on those.
internal battery?
Yeah.
Those have to be replaced on a regular basis?
We know when when we don't get the reads, that's when we know we can go, we need to go out and get those taken care of.
I mean, you talk about 13,000, or ultimately
19,000.
19,000.
Yep.
I'm eventually going to have somebody just.
Correct, and we do
Nice
have
batteries.
we do have MXUs on most of these now. It's just that they're not capable of transmitting that signal to the antenna and then back to our office. It just transmits basically from the house to the car.
To the street.
Yep.
The guy goes down.
Correct.
It's nice.
I just wonder if those solar powered or just basically.
They're a little box essentially on the house. Yeah.
All right.
Tidal power.
Yeah.
The water going through.
I don't think so.
Thinking,
Nice. That'd be good.
All right.
All right.
So if there's no further questions on that, I'd like to move to the substation elevated storage tank. This project would add an additional 750,000 gallon elevated storage tank along Substation Road just south of 303 to provide improved water pressure to existing customers and increase water capacity within that service district to help with continued development in Brunswick and Liverpool Township. Tower would be in place indefinitely. This is where it gets a little interesting with the availability of other funding. I am currently submitted this project for the Ohio Department of Development as part of their $250 million grant project. If, as part of that application, they were asking, they want to have a match. So, and they want to know the funding source and if the money's been committed or not. So, if approved for this money, I would use the $2 million of ARP money to match the grant if we qualify. If not, I would look for $4 million in ARP money to cover the cost of the tower.
As part of that, they also readiness to proceed is part of that scoring system.
Correct.
How does this compare? Is this project, would this be one that could be immediately?
We are looking to bid this out within 6 months.
Got it.
So we're already working on the boundary survey. We're working on the soil borings. I believe should be happening next week. Once we get that to the water tower engineer. They get that designed, and then we'll get that out. So.
Okay.
This project would impact Liverpool and Brunswick Hills Township. There is minimal cost and maintenance with the water tower. We would have to maintain the interior approximately once every 20 years. As discussed, this would provide improved water pressure and capacity for those for both Brunswick Hills and Liverpool townships to allow growth and development in those townships. And this would benefit approximately 6,000 residents. Was there any questions regarding the substation
This also
tower?
provides water service to the industrial park in Liverpool, correct?
Hmm,
Or no?
I believe so.
He said Liverpool Township.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
Yeah, I believe this is, I believe that's a different tower district.
Okay.
This tower district stops just south, in the southern part of Liverpool Township.
Oh, okay, so it does not serve the upper part? of
That
the
is correct,
industrial
yeah.
park. Okay.
I just tried to think for a second.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Jeremy, will this one require any work at homes, like any pressure regulators or anything that would have to be done in?
I don't believe, no.
private residences?
We have not talked about having to do that, so. And that's because of the pressure out there already is somewhat low. So this would just add a.
Boost it up.
Exactly. But not above 75 pounds, I believe. Okay. Any other questions on that one? Okay. Fenn and Marks Road Tower. This is another elevated storage tank. We actually currently have a existing water tower there, and the sole purpose of that water tower is to feed or to provide service to water haulers. So that's where they would drive up, fill their tanks, and then they would, move on. So the idea here would be to demo that current tank and then build a new 750,000 gallon elevated storage tank. And this would, then we would hook this into our Weymouth Tower District, which is one of our larger tower districts. That's our central tower district. And then we would also build a water hauling station off to the side so the water haulers could still use that same property to come up and fill their trucks, just not directly under the tower. This would provide for increased capacity and continued development in Medina, Brunswick Hills, York, Liverpool, and Montville townships. And in a pinch, it could also provide water to the other 5 water districts, the service districts, in a pinch. So we could, if there was a district that went down due to a water main break or something, we could provide capacity from this district into those. So it gives us a little bit of redundancy there.
So you have the ability to restrict a water tower's effect in terms of a district?
Correct. Yeah, we figure that water tower serves it's almost like a service area, right?
Okay.
So, but we also have interconnects where we can move water between districts in pinches if we need to.
Okay. So this existing tower doesn't perform that function, it's only used?
Nope,
for filling?
it's only used for filling the water tower, or for filling the water hauler tanks.
How big is the existing tower?
If I had to guess, I'm thinking maybe 200,000, 250,000 gallon. And it's due for some maintenance pretty soon, which is, you're looking probably $200,000 to $300,000 to have it sandblasted, the paint taken off, repainted, drain the tower, get in there, and do the same thing in there. So the idea was, instead of putting money towards the maintenance of it, well, let's take it down and put a new one in there and make it functional for everyone.
Okay.
Obviously, this tower will also be in place indefinitely. And again, I'm also submitting this one to the Ohio Department of Development. I requested $250 million for that grant application. So if that goes through, I would request $2.5 million of ARP. If I get denied on the grant or don't get the grant money, then would be hoping to get $5 million for that. We kind of discussed all the different districts and political subdivisions. You're looking at, as far as number of residents benefiting, 9,000 within the Weymouth Tower District, and you're probably looking at population closer to 39,500 when you include being able to provide emergency capacity to the other districts.
Of the 2 projects, of the 2 water towers, which is the more immediate need?
Good question.
The substation.
Substation 1?
Yeah, and substation, the issue there is that it's just the water, it cycles, meaning that the water gets used, we have to fill it back up. It cycles more than what the EPA would like.
Right. Okay. Because of the, increased capacity or demand.
Correct.
In that whole area that developed,
Mhm.
Brunswick Hills.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay. On to the next one. Converting the Chippewa Lake treatment plant into a pump station. So this would be a regionalizing the wastewater treatment plant by decommissioning the Chippewa wastewater treatment plant and pumping the wastewater from there north along Lake Road to 162 in Lake, and then that would eventually feed into the Liverpool treatment plants for treatment.
Do we have enough capacity in Liverpool?
That's what we need to look into. We need to. I know this was conceptually talked about. I don't know if any studies have been done to determine whether or not there's 3 pump stations on the that this wastewater would pass through. Do those pump stations have capacity? Do the pumps need to get enlarged? Do the existing sewers, do they have enough capacity? So we have to look into that. That's all part of this, to analyze it, design it, and construct it. It all includes that $14 million. Within the next 2 to 8 years, though, that Chippewa water plant will require upgrades to meet current regulatory standards. So at some point, we're going to have to do something here.
Do you have any idea of what it would cost, just the order of magnitude, to upgrade that system?
As far as to upgrade the pump, the existing wastewater treatment plant?
Chippewa plant?
I want
The
to.
alternative, $3 million alternative, $5 million alternative?
I think you're looking at like closer to a $20 million, $15 to $20 million upgrade to the existing plant, and then you have your additional all the continued cost of electricity and all that. So.
Since we're taking, well, I'll just say wastewater from the southern part of the divide, moving it to the north, does that require any additional permitting by EPA, or is that?
Not from the south, not wastewater from the south to the north, no.
Okay, all right.
And unfortunately, it would not help with the ODNR diversion permits because the water all originates in the Ohio River Basin, or the Ohio watershed. So
Yeah.
bringing water from there into the Lake Erie watershed does not give us any credit.
Right, that's good, okay.
So yeah, so this is more still in the conceptual. We still have some studies to do with this, but again, something will most likely have to be done with the plant in the near future. Lafayette and Westfield townships would, Gloria Glens, those would be your immediate, those would be the communities that would benefit from this. With the additional pump station there would be electricity use, there would be maintenance of it, but it would be less than that of a wastewater treatment plant. It does help, as far as a public benefit, it does regionalize our wastewater treatment, so that's always a good thing. We would also, as part of this project, look into building some equalization tanks that would be large enough to help at least reduce or eliminate any sanitary sewer overflows that we do experience when it rains. When we get those heavier rains, the lake seems to creep up into our sewer system, so it seems like we drain the lake a few times a year, so this would help with that. And the number of customers benefiting, you're probably looking at just under 1,200 customers. And then any questions regarding that project? Okay, and the last project here is upgrading the Westfield water plant to double its capacity. This project would be the first step in expanding our southern water district in an effort to alleviate the reliance on the Northwest system to provide water to properties located in the Ohio River watershed. So as of right now, we have water that is taken from Lake Erie, brought south across the divide into the Ohio River Basin. We're only allowed so much water per day. So the idea here is we have the Westfield water plant. Let's bring up the capacity and start servicing from the south north to help alleviate some of that water coming across the divide there. So this would be the first step in that. And currently we're about 570,000 gallon per day. By doubling this, that makes it about 1 million gallon a day that we are producing down there. This upgrade would be in place indefinitely.
That's Jeremy, describe, when you say, what are you going to do? I mean, it sounds to me like if you're going to spend $4 million, you're going to put in a new.
Basically, we're going to mirror the existing plant. It was designed to be, so it's already designed like this. So basically, we're just going to go like this, and then we'll have double our capacity.
So same sort of process?
Same thing, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So the current well system has sufficient daily capacity for that?
Mhm. Correct. Now, we would have to maybe look into potentially getting a new well down the road,
Right.
but the existing wells that we do have, I was told would be
Because
sufficient.
There's 2 wells, right? There's
Correct.
a well down on South Westfield Road?
On Westfield Road in that cornfield, or the
Right.
farm field, yep. And then we have one west on, I think there's a couple on Greenwich west by
Right.
Kings Creek, or Kingsbury, whatever that road, that
Yeah.
is just to the west.
Right.
That road escapes me, but. I did not submit this project to the Ohio Department of Development only because it's not project ready right now. So, so we still need to have it analyzed, designed, and put into, so doing that, you're probably a couple years out. So, as far as a multi-agency benefit, Westfield, Lafayette, Montville Townships, and the Westfield Center Village would all benefit from this project. Continuing operation costs would be, essentially it's going to be double what the current plant is now. And as we talked about a public benefit, yeah, it's with us bringing the water from the south north and easing our reliance on Lake Erie water being brought into the Ohio River Basin. That helps with our ODNR diversion permits. And this could affect in the neighborhood of 6,700 residents.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are you done with that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you did the math here, and you managed to request almost all of our ARP money.
It wasn't easy.
33.5 million, and what do we have, 34, Amy? Yeah, so you did a good job. In your expert opinion, number 1 to number 5, what are your top priorities?
I think our fixed base system,
Is number 1?
yeah,
Number 2?
substation tower.
Okay.
Number 3 would be the Fen and March.
Rank
You got
you
them
got
in
'em
order
in
right there?
Yeah, pretty much in the ranked
Oh, okay,
order.
so they're in the order of your importance as they were submitted to us.
Correct.
Okay, good to know.
I guess that would have been an easier answer.
Yeah. I like added them up. I added them, and I was like impressed. I was like,
So,
wow,
but
he almost spent the whole thing.
In terms of
Almost.
funding, though, the fixed base meter system, there's no grant program out there. The only thing would to be done would be an OWDA.
I'm
correct?
thinking so, because that kind of gets
Yeah.
close on the infrastructure portion of the, so yeah.
All right. Okay. And yet we know the other projects potentially have that, and potentially we know next year they're talking about additional round of funding.
Correct.
Through that, okay.
And to your point, we are already starting to line up some projects and get them almost project ready. So when those come out, we will be ready to go.
Okay.
So you have a 6th project listed on here that was not included in this material.
Correct. And that was the Grainger Lakes
Lakes.
water line, and that was to help service Grainger Lake condos. But I think that they've kind of, since I submitted that, they have, I believe, gone to a treatment process with an engineer that they had hired. So I don't believe that they needed that line at this time, so.
But then he would have spent it.
So if you were to do that line, is there any benefit to making the system available to more people or making a loop? So if that were to be done, it would certainly benefit those folks. But would there be any benefit down the road to having that infrastructure in place
For expansion?
for expansion?
We are looking at those areas where we can maybe connect areas that looks like, there's a couple areas in Chatham where, we have water lines. There's no connecting water line here, but yeah, stuff like that, yeah.
Okay,
We are in the process of looking through that.
all right. See, he can still spend the money.
Always could.
Okay,
Senator.
Anything else?
My the most important question was his order of priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody here from HVA Systems?
Are you ready?
Yes.
The floor is yours.
What is he under?
I'm under lots of different
He's under
tabs,
several.
so I'll kind of go through the tabs.
So you mean he's more than,
For example, are you beginning with transit?
I was literally going to
Oh.
go through the.
tab 6?
got it.
Amy, if you just keep us in order of where we should go,
I
that'd
could
be
help that
great.
as well. I think I'm on it. Amy squared me away yesterday.
Tab 6.
So we're going to talk about some HVAC systems and upgrades to through the county projects or through this funding to help our buildings just communicate better. I don't know if all of these will ever qualify, but we'll present them and go from there. So the transit, we started looking at the buildings that are out on that location. So there was highway engineer, transit, farm and soil administration. We've already approved the county home. And so the transportation area is all about communication. We don't see their building in any kind of communication forms. So all of our buildings, all of our larger locations are in a program that we actually see. We can manipulate the systems. We understand what they're doing. This would actually connect them to our systems. So it would just give us the ability to import all of that information into our current control system for an HVAC standpoint, so we can control that building's structure.
How much is this one?
This one is running from, the budget estimate right now is 37 to 45. I think we've put it on the high side of 45,000.
This one, so the Gardner
Yes.
for transit is 37 to 45,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear here, we are looking at
Tab number 6.
6, but there's
Okay.
not a dollar amount on it.
Right,
does
so
it?
Yeah.
this is transit.
Page 2.
Page 2.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
You see it?
yep.
Okay. The next project that we would have, I would send you to page, or I guess, number 8.
Tab 8.
Tab 8.
Tab 8.
Yep. It'd be the highway engineer. So the highway engineer has a failing air handling system inside their building. That building, I am not sure exactly how old their building actually is. I'm going to say it's probably 20. So their air handling system is failing. It is in need of repairs or replacement. The information I was told about it the other day was not promising. So, and this unit would, this amount of money would provide a new air handling system, a new chilling system, it's DX cooling system, and then 3 new boilers, which would give us redundancy in that location at a total, and that would be, so that's tab 8, and that would be on page 3, and that's going to be $571,000 to $657,000.
Is that like unreadable somewhere?
Tab number.
No, you gotta keep going, keep going, keep going.
It's actually in section 8, your second tab.
Yeah,
Right.
Within that section, and then on.
keep going.
Keep going. I was like all confused because I
All right,
was reading
right.
the dump truck thing.
Next page. There you go. Starts right there.
Okay.
Oh, got
And you
it.
flip the
Okay.
page.
Because it starts off the dump truck. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Tab 8.
Well,
So lower right-hand corner
Got it.
there is your total.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Again, this is a failing system, so it also will, they will be removing the VAV boxes throughout the building and then creating just a whole new system in the building.
Steven, may I ask what the life expectancy is on the new equipment? So you're
We've kind of placed an estimate on life expectancy of air handlers, about 25 to 30 years. If you've got a good air handling system, it should last longer than that. I'm not sure why this one's not, except for it is a DX cooling system, so it does have a cooling coil in it. It's a little bit different, but from an air handler standpoint, 25, 30 years. Boiler system's about the same. Now, we've been very, very lucky. We've had some really good equipment in our buildings that have lasted a very long time. We've got a couple air handlers over at the Human Service Center building that I would never recommend replacing. They're 40 years old, and they're just a box with a motor on it, and we can replace the motors and continue keeping those boxes going. But this unit we could not, because it has an actual cooling coil inside of it. So, any other questions with that one? The next one, and I'll get you to your tab here. If I can move the...
Juvenile detention?
Tab 9. Yep. Amy's all over it. This is Juvenile Detention Center. So in these, obviously the Juvenile Detention Center is also 20 years old. We have a lot of 20-year-old buildings in our fleet. So the Juvenile Detention Center has 6 rooftop units. They are not failing. We have pieces of them that we have been replacing over time for controls access and things like that. We've just had controllers failing on them. We're replacing them as a fail, but as this funding is available, it might be just smart of us to use the funding on air quality control for COVID. It would actually, these are air handlers, but they're considered rooftop units. They're a full package system that sits up on top of the roof. And then this package would cost you anywhere from $291,000 to $335,000 to replace all 6 units.
So they're only going to replace the controls, they're not replacing the whole unit?
That's replacing the entire unit.
Oh, okay.
The rooftop packages are a little bit cheaper than some of these other units we're looking for, just because they're a whole, it's basically a direct replacement. You pull the one off, you stick the other one on. Some of these others, like the highway engineer, is not. You have to redesign the system to make it work. That's why you kind of see a little bit of that cost difference between the two. The next one will be tab 11 for the animal shelter. So again, we're investigating that quadrant of our buildings. This is a large number for the animal shelter. It took us all aback a little bit, at least for me it did. It's going to be $298,000 to $342,000. Commissioner Hampley, I like your expressions.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's-
what?
So the code on having an animal shelter, where you're supposed to be turning that air more often than not, so we had to go upsize the unit. So they're going to put a rooftop unit, or the suggestion is to put a rooftop unit that's a 20-ton rooftop unit sitting on the ground to the north or to the south side of the building to supply enough volume to actually exchange the air inside of there. What we would do is we would eliminate all of their air conditioning systems that they have inside. So they have a small air exchanger. They have a air conditioner for the dog pens, and then they have an air conditioner inside the building. All of those would be gone, and we would just bring in a rooftop and supply the entire building with just the one rooftop. But in order to get the air exchange inside the building and keep it tempered, we'd have to go with that large of a unit. So unfortunately, that's if we switch out, that's what we'd have to switch to at any point in time.
So that standard of, was it 10 to 12, 10 to 20 air exchanges per hour?
Correct.
So forth, that is a standard that any large kennel would have to abide by?
That's what we are being told by the engineers that are designing this system. That is correct. Because I asked that same question, it just seemed outrageous that we needed that big of a unit, and in order for it to meet the code or the controls aspect, then it has to have that many turns, and that's to keep. We have an air exchanger in there now. It's a small unit.
Right,
it's
right,
6,000 CFMs or whatever. It doesn't do as much as what it should be doing, but it is doing what we need it to do for now.
Sure.
So
Do you have any idea how many square feet that facility is?
that's a great question. If I had to put a number to it, I could find out for you. I would think about 5,000,
That's-
maybe 6,000.
Yeah, 5 to 10 is my guess.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being 10, but it could be. That their kennel size section's pretty large.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions with that one? The next one is the Farm and Soil Administration, which is tab number 13. Again, this building is 20 years old. They are two package units that sit on the ground. They're like a rooftop unit. We have had issues with these units since I've been here at the county. With either control boards or the thermostats indoors, there's always a problem with these units operating effectively. And these would cost $79,000 to $91,000 to replace those two units. And then it's actually two rooftop style units that sit on the ground that service that entire building. That was all of the things that I'm
okay.
asking for as
right.
of right now. If you guys would like to give away more money, I could give you way more buildings to continue to.
All right, I'm going to ask you the Jeremy question. You have highway engineer, juvenile detention, transit, animal shelter, soil and water, 5, correct? That you
That is
proposed?
correct. That's what
What
I've given.
is your order of priority?
I think the failing unit at the highway engineer.
So
would be
that's number 1. Okay.
The soil and water would be number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Juvenile detention center number 3.
Okay.
Animal shelter number 4. And the controls at transit would be number 5.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, and we have more buildings than this that I have not even prepared that could probably utilize some of these funds. So.
But
I'm
it's
not-
good to know your expertise of the 5 you've submitted, what you feel is the most important.
They are.
You know, if you follow the Jeremy theory,
Yeah.
you probably have another $32 million you could spend.
Well, I think I'm spending it across the street, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Scott's spending that money, I guess, but, okay.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Dave Corrado. You ready?
I am. A little birdie told me you're moving ahead.
We are.
I'm sure we
As
know
long as you're here.
which of the 2 birdies they are.
This one
Thank
was the, yeah, this was the Kathy variety.
Thank you.
Let's bring this down to my level. I'm Dave Corrado from Medina County Fiber Network, representing the network, and thank you very much for allowing us to present our project this evening. Just quickly, I'm obviously not going to go through the 12 pages we submitted, but this is a fiber densification program, which is a little different than building a completely new network. We are taking the existing infrastructure that we have built and been running for the last 8 to 10 years, and we are basically going into the areas with new fiber that would not have been addressed earlier, which we'll get into further into this project. So if you please go to the first page, just a little project background. It is a government infrastructure. We're looking at fiber to commercial premise and fiber to the residential premise. We will maintain the open access fiber network that we have today. There is a defined payback that we'll get into in the later slides. And one thing that's very important is this is replicable to other geographies. So although we'll be predominantly focusing on 4 geographies, the majority of the money will be in the one larger piece for the residential. This can be replicated to go anywhere throughout the county, or actually even into Cuyahoga or Summit County, where our fiber extends today. Okay. All right, a quick picture on page 3. The 4 blocks here, the lower right-hand corner is the Guilford Township area. And that's where the predominant of the 3 million, roughly 2.8 million would be invested there, almost 2.9. The other 3 are expanding areas into industrial parks which were not part of the initial build-out of the Medina County Fiber Network, and which we have received a lot of interest. And we've been building a little at a time through operational revenue. Yes, please.
So you're saying the Guilford Township, bottom right, 2.9 million, your total ask is 3, so it's only 100,000?
Yeah, it's only 100,000 for the other
I just wanted to
three.
clarify.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very small. We do have a small footprint in those other 3 industrial areas, but to really do it right, if you will, we would need a small amount to be used without taking away any funding or any matching that we give toward the debt structure. Okay? Of the project background, this goes through a little bit. It's roughly $10.5 million to build out those 3 small industrial parks and, of course, the larger residential small business area. We have a private partner investment of $7 million to match to the $3 million that we're asking. And the payback is a 6 to 8 year payback of at least $2.5 million. The reason that it's shown in a range is because, of course, based on the take rate. The take rate is how many homes you connect or small business in a given area. And we did calculations based on 50% up to 70%. We do have quite a few people interested in this area, and the competition is quite low. So the 70% may not be completely off the mark, or it may actually bring that down to the 6. And we did it in a range with a minimum of $2.5 million. All 3 may be paid back based on the take rate within the 6 to 8 years.
So you're saying the $3 million request, you intend to pay back?
Correct.
So Dave, I'm going back to these pictures. So Guilford Township, Sharon Township, looks like that one is Lodi, Harris
Yes.
Township.
Yes.
And then this one over here is Lafayette or
That's probably Medina.
Medina?
That's Medina. That's off of Lake Road.
The residential one, actually, that's also Montville Township as well, too, correct?
Yes, any part inside that white.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, you know the area better than me, even though I've been here 8 years. I'm still using my GPS on occasion.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, so
it's
it
all the
will
way up
touch.
to, past 162.
Yeah, so Commissioner, the way that the $50 million, which we'll talk about, that we have today for the residential, there were certain areas that were designated as Phase 1 builds and Phase 2 through 5 builds. Those are areas which can show a financial return to the investors within a certain amount of time. Other areas which are less dense will be looked at later, depending on take rates and how much revenue, or as a program like this, on matching government funds, that we could enter that area sooner than anticipated. That's what this ask is really all about. It's getting into that area east of I-71, north of Greenwich Road. That would be after Phase 5 and be one of the areas we would be visiting much later. Okay, anything else? Good on that?
I have
Yeah,
some
go ahead.
questions. This is regarding the, now you're calling this the densification program.
Correct.
Is that largely, I mean, you're attributing that's for the industrial park, you're calling that a densification?
It's for all 4 of them. Densification is taking an existing infrastructure and building off of that, as compared to, say, asking for $10 million for us to travel to Stark County and replicate the infrastructure we have today. So
it.
we're
Okay.
taking spurs and loops off of
Got
the
it.
existing, and that's why it's densifying the area around the existing infrastructure as compared to expanding into another region.
Got it. I'll just say, the industrial parks, we'll just kind of set that aside.
Yeah, they're very small
very
from a
small. The
residential
$2.9 million
ask.
For that, who is the current provider of, I guess, broadband in those areas currently?
We have Spectrum and Frontier DSL is in that area.
DSL doesn't count.
Yeah. I like to include everything. So it's
Yeah, I don't.
basically Spectrum then.
Okay.
Spectrum cable.
Okay.
no fiber
And those
provider.
are areas actually to if I recall the zoning, I have to look at the zoning map, those are largely going to probably remain fairly rural.
Correct.
Given there's no forecast of large developments within that.
That's correct.
So your current projections in terms of the take rate as well as the payback, is that based on any presumption of any development, or is that just based on current number of households, or what's your, I guess, how's the math on this one?
Sure, it's based on the 2,358 homes.
Okay.
And again, the range is based on the low side, approximately 50%.
Okay.
About 1665 and the higher percent.
2358 current homes.
Correct.
Yeah, so you're not anticipating any actually significant residential growth within that?
We are not.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
And yeah, and that's why we're targeting this area, because it would not, most probably, I don't want to say always, most probably would not be an area where investor funds would come in because of the very long payback and the higher risk.
Right. There's no large developments in that.
Absolutely, right.
Based on the local zoning, I think in that case, well, water, like water and sewer, for those areas are somewhat limited.
Yes. Yes.
Recall correctly.
Yeah, they're septic in that area, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Septic tanks.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
So Dave,
Yes, go ahead.
question on the industrial park, since Steve didn't go into those.
Right, yeah.
Do we have active prospects along those corridors that we know would jump on if it were available? Like I'm looking at this leg in Lodi that goes from the center of town out to West Street, and West Street is an industrial area of several businesses out there. I mean, do we have prospects that we are sure will sign up if we invest the money in it?
Yes, we've had a plastics facility, rather large, in that area off of West Street that has actually gone to 3 of our carriers in addition to calling us over the last 4 years. We've quoted a few companies in the Medina Industrial Park.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the one in the park that's off of in Wadsworth, or Sharon. Thank you, Sharon Township. That is all aerial, so that's not very expensive. We're just probably talking about $35,000 to do that piece. And we've had requests from all those areas. Of course, our economic model today is that we require a 24-month payback of the lateral cost. That's how we set our monthly. So we can't do that to get to a number of those companies that are at the end of the industrial parks. And the reason we've set that rule is so that we can make payments to the bond debt rather than using up all our operational revenue. So that is sort of where these type of asks come into play, where we could have separate capital investment and not affect the amount of money we're paying toward the bonds. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, let's go on to permanency of improvement on page 6. Fiber itself is rated, and you can find varying reports between 35 to 45 years. You can extend that through periodic maintenance, such as if you have underground fiber, looking at water in the vaults and, putting in additional gravel for better drainage, et cetera. Replacing small areas where squirrels like to gnaw, and believe it or not, they have. We even found a family of mice in a field that wanted some teething on one of our fibers. So all of that extends that entire network even further. Now, the network equipment has a 5 to 8 year life cycle. You can get a 10-year depreciation if your auditors are generous. Technology enhancements coming out year after year after year. We're already up to gear now that can do 400 gig backbones. Where we started, it was 10 gig just 8 years ago. Fiber is only limited by the speed of light, because it's a laser. So until we hit the speed of light, I would say this is a fairly permanent improvement that will be built and will not be outdated, because I think we still have a ways to go until we can do that. And then, of course, the project can become sustainable because there are monthly revenues along with this project as you connect the homes and small business. Okay. I'm sure most people know the background, but a couple bullet points. We are owned by the Medina County Port Authority. The network operates in the public and private space. We have 14 carriers directly connected to the network that are involved in the operation of the network, bringing their products and services. The network's been in operation, it says 8 years, because actually our first customer was in 2011, so it'd be 10 years. But we rebuilt the network 8 years ago into its current form, and that's sort of where I say that our current network and the way it operates and what it can support was really 8 years ago. And then, of course, we are partnered with a private CLEC, which is a competitive local exchange carrier. That was due to the AT&T breakup. Your local exchange carrier is your phone company, so here it is Frontier. When AT&T was broken up in the 90s, competitive local exchange carriers were defined, and they had to meet certain requirements, and our partner, Lit Communities, DBA Medina Fiber, is a CLEC registered in the state of Ohio, and they're investing $50 million into the small business and residential densification of the network off of our current infrastructure. So I put that as part of our background because it's a big piece. For funding sources, of course, we have recurring monthly revenue from the commercial side today, expanding to the residential, and then, of course, small business, which we like to call the cable buster, in that $100 to $200 a month range. There are federal grants that are available for our partner, Medina Fiber, to apply to, and also state grants, actually, I should have put on there, that they can apply to. We cannot, of course. And then private investment, which is one of the biggest pieces we have going right now with our partnership. We're in a public-private partnership arrangement.
So Dave, has Lit Communities applied for any of the funding from the state of Ohio?
They have not yet. We have sent over all the info. That's actually number one on my Thursday meeting. I meet with all the execs from Lit Communities every Thursday. So that's one thing I'm going to be talking about, is if a schedule's been put in place to put applications in place. Okay, but they have all the background, all the FAQs on all the state of Ohio released funding.
Good.
Okay. Okay, page 8, location, location, location has really changed into connection, connection, connection. It's not so much that you have to have your business on Main Street anymore. It's more that you have to be able to communicate with your, the vendors that are in your product cycle and your manufacturing cycle, your raw products, et cetera, et cetera. One piece, too, from a multi-agency benefit, a shared resource model. This was a real big white paper that was written by Governor Kasich and talked about shared resources among Ohio governments. And he talked about, say, an expert that might know GIS services in the city of Medina. Instead of Seville and Lodi each hiring their own GIS, if you can connect all those communities with a high-speed fiber network, that expert can be the expert for all of those communities. It reduces cost, and instead of just having somebody who may not have been the best expert because you couldn't afford them, being a smaller community, you're able to use the one that got the best salary from the biggest city. We sort of see that with the sheriff covering certain townships, et cetera, villages, what have you. But that's a big piece of that. And currently, there are 18 Medina County agencies that are connected to the MCF and infrastructure today. All right. If we look at continuing operational costs, this is a great piece. There is none. Our partner will absorb all of the operational cost. We're just looking for the $3 million capital investment, so there are no additional funds needed that we have to match for the operation of this project. Impact to the community served, from a connectivity perspective, of course, education is very important. As we see more and more of our students, I think we learned this during COVID, schools going to digital books, online needs, the capability to access that. Home-based businesses are becoming very important now. We noticed a lot of people, again, during COVID, worked from home rather than having to pay money into a new office. Small business starting up, and of course, telecommuters. So we want the ability of the person, say, who's working at Westfield Insurance with our high-speed fiber networks there, to have that same capability at home in order to do their job. So if they're splitting up a couple of days in either direction, we want that to be transparent where they don't have to slow down and have issues with that. From an asset value perspective, you'll find about a 3 to 4% increase in home value for fiber speeds of greater than 100 meg, and a commercial increase of about 5 to 7%, and that's if you offer up to 1 gig, which all of our projects do. And of course, the biggest impact I always think is economic development, which if you flip the page to the public benefit, I think of public benefit and economic development hand in hand. So this nice table here that was put together by my canary friend telling me all the little things about the public benefit, that is about $650 million of economic investment in the county in a 3-year period. You'll notice that 63% of that was done by companies who are on the Medina County Fiber Network. So if you just go to the bottom here, it's a huge domino effect, right? When you are able to increase the infrastructure that brings in companies, you're also going to increase banking, consumables, discretionary spending. People buy, right, taxes in the form of real estate taxes and, of course, income taxes, the real estate value, and then, of course, education. And the more that you pull in based on the value of your homes, more money can go towards education, and the whole cycle starts up. And then, of course, your students want to come back to that area, and then they want to keep it going. So it creates this cycle, which is sort of self-fulfilling from, you know, not just a demographic, but also an economic space. Okay. And to finish up here, the last couple, measurable success. So we have a couple tools. Obviously, the first one will be take rate. Again, take rate is how many homes are connected onto the fiber. So we monitor that quarterly, and then we take a look at our projections against the financial. We have the rate of capital payback to the county, that $2.5 million I was talking about. We would have that set up in that 6 to 8 years where a certain amount is due at certain times, so we'll be able to measure against that. One thing a lot of people forget are applications delivered. So we're not just talking about television and voice and data. We're also talking about telemedicine. We have active, just the contracts are almost signed with bringing in a monthly subscription where you can have a televideo to a doctor, unlimited number, et cetera. Other things we're working with are home security systems, smart home applications, right? This gives us a really good indication if people are buying these additional applications. We call it a stickiness factor, where people will tend to, even if there were an increase in the monthly, say, on internet, would tend to stay with that because of what the application does for them. Also, additional capital investment by private investors is directly linked to the take rate. That's how we do our draw today. So we'll be able to look at how much money's coming in. And we've been running a demand aggregation tool for the last couple of years. So we know where the greatest demand is and how many people are interested in our particular project before we even allocate the money and start building. Okay. And then the last piece, number of residents benefiting, as I mentioned, 2,358 homes are targeted in that area. Of course, the actual benefit from a quantitative perspective is a function of the take rate, but we did the high and low on that. And again, I think all of Medina County benefits, obviously, from the fiber network infrastructure expansion, had to put that plug in. Not just the Guilford area, but because it is a replicatable process, replicable process that if, this works well, it definitely will draw more private investment and show the Medina County is interested in assisting for moving that forward.
I have a question for Amy. You are the only project pitched to us that actually wants to pay us back. How is that going to be for audit? You know what I mean? These are ARP funds, and then we're going to get paid back in the future. Is that going to be an audit issue?
Yeah, well, that's something I do want to look into because I believe there are some limitations on receiving the money back.
Right.
In terms of repayment.
And might that be somewhat alleviated if those funds were used for the same purpose that the funds were originally appropriated for?
That's worth looking into. I'm not sure that's clear in the interim fund level, but we
okay.
can definitely
Okay.
consider
We
that.
need to understand that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so Dave, to be clear, because I'm not sure that I am actually seeing the number in here. The request is for $3 million.
Correct.
Flat, okay.
2.9
Oh, there
was
it
for
is.
Guilford.
Right.
So it
Well-
doesn't mean, I mean, there still may even be the possibility to do the project without the payback, correct, Amy? If the payback is an issue? Because fiber qualifies 100%. Yes, broadband.
Yeah, if that's an issue, we built a financial model to show the sustainability and the ability to generate money back to the county. If that is not allowed or appropriate, that money could be used to then generate the additional fiber builds into other areas that would have been excluded.
And I guess that's the reason my question.
Yeah.
For that. And obviously with score higher, if we're able to use it, if it was continually funding to expand broadband.
Absolutely.
If it pays it back, obviously we want paid back eventually too. So and there's that benefit.
No, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
this is the only project with
Right.
the
Oh, exactly.
payback
Yeah.
option.
Right. Well, I guess there is some, I guess, indirect payback. If we talk about the water, it means money we won't have to charge to our customers
Right.
for those water towers that would otherwise have to be built. So I guess, yeah. And I know we keep saying Gilbert Township, but clearly it's Montville and Sharon Township. Considerable properties are benefiting from this. So basically, it's 3 townships.
Yes.
At least in that.
Again,
It's maybe a little also.
it's a little bit more. Yes, it does
Yeah.
go into others.
Yeah, but I a quick question, though. So that take rate of 50%, if Spectrum, especially for this area, you talk about Montville, Guilford, and Sharon, if Spectrum is the current provider, basically you're taking it away from them, in effect. That's
Correct.
the model. So how competitive will our rates be compared to Spectrum? And obviously gives the consumers more choices, having been in a community that has 2 choices, Brunswick. The rates have been actually somewhat, they mirror the same, but at least I think competitive to where other areas only have 1 choice.
Right, so what you'd need to do first is to do a proper apples to apples. You'd
Right.
need to choose one of the Spectrum solutions, which would even approximate 100 by 100. The closest they had would be like a 300 by 30, would be close to 100 by 100. And the price for the fiber that's 100 by 100 is about 50% of what Spectrum charges for that.
For a technical guy like you, that makes sense. But the average homeowner, they just look as, can I get Netflix and Apple TV and my kid also do their homework at the same time without it buffering?
Yes. Oh, the minimum, yes.
So people don't look at the, basically as how you got it there. They just want to use this from their perspective. And the Spectrum, the question come down when people evaluate it is, does it have sufficient capacity and speed for that, as opposed to, yeah, you got a whole lot more with ours, but they may not perceive that as a benefit.
Right. The only reason I said that is because, sometimes people will come to us and say, well, you're at $49 and Spectrum is a $43 offering.
Right.
Well, number one, you can't run many of your applications with that because of what they're giving you is a very, very low rate. And number two, if you read the fine print, that's a 6-month introductory rate only. Our rates are not introductory, there's no contracts, and the bandwidth is significantly higher.
But this would no doubt increase competition within that area and giving consumer choice.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All
How
right.
is current construction going?
Very well, actually. We anticipated 5 years for the build-out. With the underground crews going so quickly, we're anticipating more like 2 to 3 years. So it's going faster than anticipated. And we've done some work in Medina. Of course, we had to do the Mayor's Street first in Medina.
Well, I shouldn't say that.
No, I'm just joking. That's just a joke. If anybody's recording
The
this.
last one you want to do.
I'm sorry, I'm not in government. No, I'm just joking. It just happened to be an area, we did 5 streets all at once. It just happened to be an area we had a permit for, and he happened to be on it. The reason I found out is just because some people said we did a real nice job there. But it's coming along well. And we have the first people were turned up last week. We call those our friendlies. We have tools where we can simulate heavy traffic over the network without having to hook up 10,000 people. So these first 50 to 75, we put the tools onto the network, and we say, okay, how's the performance now that there's 10,000 people on the network? So we can do all that.
Going in areas that you're in.
Well, we haven't taken any credit cards. Right. As far as, though, people saying that they want it through the demand aggregation tool, we have 30 to 40%, and we're not even doing drops yet. Yeah. And those, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Well, I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Ed Van Hoos and we had a prior conversation. You're aware that he came in. I don't know whether you saw the video or anything, but
I did.
obviously they've been indicated very clearly that they want to work with Medina County, and they would like to. Obviously, we have a real desire to see broadband just extend to that area, and obviously, I know you've had conversations with them, but likewise, I think we need to push forward with making sure whatever we can do to get it out there. And I know that's not part of your current proposals, and people will ask, how come we're not doing out in that area? And I guess my answer to them will be, we need to work with LMRE to help accomplish that, because right now, under our current, what we have, we can't do that.
Correct. Our first proposal we were going to use was going to be the LMRE area, as we had committed funds from the investors to do that, and there were twice as many homes. But there were some restrictions by LMRE that we could not meet at the meeting we had with them. So for now, we decided to go to another area that was less contentious with them. So we'll have to revisit that with LMRE.
Definitely need to.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Let me know. Do we need to go anywhere?
Oh, economic development.
Thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, if you could
Hello,
pass them
Kathy.
down, Steve. I'm Kathy Brighton-Witcher with Medina County Economic Development. I feel even smarter being in this group. Thanks, Ames. All these engineers. So I'm here to talk about workforce, because you need a break from IT stuff and HVAC. As we've discussed before, workforce is the #1 problem that we're facing in business today. With over 95% of our labor force actually in jobs, as a county, we have to solve this problem by expanding our labor pool. Currently, 84% of our openings are entry-level work. These are jobs that don't require any training or skill. So when people talk about the need for skilled employment, that is not what we need in Medina County. Now, that does not say, don't want anybody to think, that there aren't jobs for people with skills. We absolutely have open jobs there too. But what our companies need are those entry-level folks. When you look at the numbers, between the census in 2010 and 2019, Medina County lost actually 17.6% of the 20 to 24-year-olds in the labor pool. So that was a pretty massive loss before COVID. So then, if you look at what happened during COVID, we add to that the early retirements, new business startups, daycare and transportation, drug overdose deaths, COVID-related issues, and an unemployment rate that's been at 5% or below. And the situation becomes very serious for our companies. Our office has documented over 1,200 openings to date in manufacturing alone, and that's just the ones that are talking to us. So multiple companies have indicated that they've had work to add new facilities or bring in new product lines, but they can't due to the labor shortage. One company last week told us they turned away $50 million in work so far this year. And let me tell you, having an entrepreneur tell you that is not an easy conversation. He was very grumpy. It is also causing companies to talk about taking projects elsewhere. And that, that's where Bethany and I start freaking out. Our office has worked for 9 years on workforce. We started with building our pipeline in the schools. We continue to work closely with all 7 school districts and both vocational programs. but our companies need people today. So to that end, we have partnered with over 40 workforce organizations that work directly with candidates. So we never work with a candidate. That's always the people who are good at it. These individuals are ready to go to work, and we work hard to connect those organizations with the companies that need their people. But we need more. So the 3 barriers to entering workforce are housing, daycare, and transportation. Last year, we partnered with the Medina Metro Housing on their very impressive workforce project that built workforce housing. We're really looking forward to that coming to fruition, and I know Skip is as well. We are looking at daycare issues, although honestly, that's really not going to be able to be resolved until we see what happens with school reopening. And then for today, we wanted to turn our attention to transportation. So transportation challenges fall into 2 buckets. You either have fragile transportation or you have no transportation if you have a transportation issue. Fragile transportation typically means that somebody has a vehicle, but they don't necessarily have consistent gas, or it's going to break down or have a problem. Typically, these folks are working, so their companies can help. And we can also find out about them, so we can find programs, and there are a number of programs through Job and Family Services and some others where they can get some assistance. But those folks that don't have a vehicle, those are the ones that fall through the cracks. So they can't check a box when they apply for a job because it always says, do you have reliable transportation? And if you have to say no, the application pretty much stops. So we can't even find them unless they're working with a social service organization. Medina County Transit has been a fabulous partner. We've enjoyed working with them very much. The 18 Corridor project has been terrific and obviously has implications in getting people to work. But the challenge with public transit is that one end of the route has to be fixed. So you have to have a group of people at a bus stop, or you have to have people that are dropped off in the same place. It's really hard to do on demand. And while we have on-demand service, it's really not geared for workforce. So knowing that, and knowing it's also not geared for alternate shifts, which a lot of our companies have, we would like to propose a pilot study. So we are working through the details on this. But what we want to do is partner with Ace Taxi, which is a vetted partner of Medina County Transit Authority. So we already know that they're a great company. They would actually rent a vehicle, a van, to one of the people in the program. And this person would then pick up 5 other people and take them to work every day. So we'd have 6 people going to work per van. In addition...
How many vans do you anticipate you want to do?
I believe we can get to 5. We're still working out some of the numbers, but I think we can get to 5. For each group, they would also attend the Financial Empowerment Center through United Way. This is an organization that is designed to help people learn how to budget and how to manage money. Because in theory, if you don't have a vehicle, you haven't had a great job, you don't know how to manage that money, and now you're making new money, we don't want them to go out and blow the money on something silly when they could be buying a vehicle. So we want them to be self-sufficient. So we expect each van to be about $500 per week, which, depending on the number of candidates and the driving history, we may be able to get that number down, which is why we say we can do about 5 vans. And I have now reprinted this 4 times today because every time I move, I get another company who's interested. So we already have 15 companies interested, with the understanding that there's going to be some, hiccups along the way, and we got to figure out how this works.
So when you say 15 companies, you're talking about employers?
Yes.
Who are interested in employing the people?
Exactly.
Okay.
So candidates will be identified through a number of means. In the handout that you have a list of sources. This is just the first round of brainstorming of where we could get those people. And then obviously we would be adding to that. Once they're identified, they'd receive a list of the job openings and the companies that would participate, and they would be able to interview. Obviously, we have to figure out how to get them to an interview. So, there are lots of little details in here that we've got to work on. Once they're awarded a position, then they would be assigned to a van depending on pickup and drop-off locations. So we try and group people. Assuming we have more candidates than we actually can fit in the program, we will try and pair them with other programs. So Goodwill right now is piloting a gas program, a gas card. So we're hoping that that could come to the county. And NOAC is actually working on a similar van pool program. But as we know, through their long-range transportation plan, they're only going to focus on job hubs, which is going to cut out a large part of our county. At the table to bring this program together was Medina County Public Transit, Ace Taxi, and United Way. We've had conversations with Goodwill and then lots and lots of companies because our companies want to talk about it. We believe the permanency of these changes, this is the kind of thing that changes a person's life. So they get a good job and they stay on that trajectory most of the time. So this is a big deal. In terms of other funding, this is a pilot. We want to be able to try some things and see what works. This seems like good money to be able to do that. Once it's proven and we know how it works, we want to package it and give it to a social service organization that should run things like this because they're good at it, and the companies would then sustain it because they wouldn't have to do recruiting, so they could reallocate that money. In order for us to do the fundraising now, that would have to then take priority over economic development work, and that's just not possible with the volume of work we have in the office. In terms of the impact to the community served, this will directly impact low and moderately income families and would also support our business community, which of course we love. The public benefit would be between 20 and 30 individuals that would become self-sufficient. And then we'll measure it by those number of individuals who actually stay in their jobs. So MCEDC firmly believes the key to our future growth in Medina County is having an available workforce. While we're borrowing this money from our children, as has been pointed out in this meeting a couple times, increasing the labor pool will actually drive immediate growth, giving more people job opportunities while providing a stronger tax base for Medina County, excuse me, and giving those children a better future.
So Kathy, if my numbers are correct, for the $75,000 grant, this program would run for 7 months?
Right.
Or 7.5 months, something like that?
Something like that.
What happens then?
Well, with any luck.
Is this like a beta test or proof of concept, and then if it works, they'll find sources of funding elsewhere, or what? What's the sustainability of it?
Yeah, and the intent is, as the companies employ these folks and find out, hey, these are good workers, things are working, I don't have to do recruiting. I can reallocate my recruiting dollars that I'm already pouring a ton of money into this program and fund it directly.
Okay. All right.
Is it also possible, as you point, some of these people, they're the nature of having fragile transportation is somewhat transient. In other words, if you get them a job and they start working and they get more stable, they're able to then afford their own transportation.
Exactly.
That's kind of a measurement of the success too, correct?
Right.
That they've actually been able to get on a path where they've gone from being totally dependent upon public transportation or this van pool and moved into almost an independent transportation
Exactly.
model. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Mayor Geissman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob? Yes. Rhonda needs one. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. So I'm here today to request funding for some water and sewer projects that the Village of Lodi is working on. I've given you some information there that I'll let you read on your own about why I believe there's a need in the Village of Lodi, and that we have around 2,900 residents that would benefit from this. Plus, there's residents out in Harrisville Township that also have our water and sewer, and then that 8371 corridor where there's many visitors to those businesses out there. Our number one project is our wastewater treatment plant was built in 2002, and we were required to put a UV disinfection system into this plant, and it is the original 20-year-old system. We can no longer buy parts for it. It is no longer serviceable.
This is your priority of your
This is,
request?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so there's our engineering company, Engineering Associates, has looked at this. It's a $320,000 expense to replace that UV system. We've been having problems meeting our permit levels during hot weather. And so we're looking at replacing that system. We're going to want to go out to bid this winter and have it installed by end of spring next year for when the hot weather hits again. Then the second project that I have listed here is we have some water lines in the village of Lodi that are nearing 85 to 90 years in age. And again, the water line replacements are ranked in order from 1 to 4 there for you. Our most immediate need is the Worcester Street from Bank Street to Academy. It's 1,340 feet. We currently have a 4-inch line there that was built in 1930. And we are looking to replace that with a 8-inch water line, obviously for more flow and fire protection. And then there's 3 other projects there you can see as well.
So we jumped past the industrial, we went to the water line?
Well, I'm going off of the sheet
Oh,
I
you're
just
going,
gave.
okay,
Yeah, I'm
got it.
sorry.
Thank you. That's okay.
Yeah, that's the
That's
original
okay.
letter I sent you. And then the last project we were looking at was Delgany's Water and Sanitary Extension. That is our industrial park in Lodi. This is, if you remember when I was here, when I talked about the Park District, that's when we were having a little issue getting across the Park District's property to get the water line extended because they don't require the water or sewer, and they own property on both sides of the road. Now, this one here, I'm not going to ask you today for any money for. I just want to make you aware of it because I would never ask you for that kind of money. But what we are working with the state, and Bethany and Kathy have had us talking with the state before about other funding for that, but there may be parts of that funding that we may need help in the future in the next 2 or 3 years. What we would rather find right now is a customer for that property where they would want us to assist in getting that water line in. So, but I did want to make it, known that we have that project down there, and at some time we may ask for some help with it.
So to be clear, the wastewater treatment plant for 320 is your priority, and then the water line replacement, you have them ranked in order of priority?
Yes, and the wastewater treatment plant one we have to do. We can't meet our permit levels next year if we don't replace it.
Okay.
And I'm not asking you for the $320,000. I'm asking you for any amount that you seem to think that would be helpful. I understand. I was watching earlier on Facebook, so I know you've had a lot of requests. And we just wanted to let you know that there's 3,000 residents down at the Village of Lodi would love to have some help paying for this. We, in my original letter I sent you, we have a $2.5 million tank replacement that's going on right now. And we've been very... Where we're taking down our water tower from Bank Street. It was built in 1934, and we're installing a ground tank at the same elevation at the top of Hawthorne Drive and replacing some water lines to get that flow.
Okay, where's the tower at on Bank Street?
It's, as you cross the railroad tracks, it'd be on the left-hand side as you're going towards Triple O or Friendly Hotel.
Okay.
So we just took down a tank that was 100 years old several years ago. This one's from 1934. So that was another EPA mandate and all the water lines with it. We have been extremely lucky. We got a $1 million grant from Army Corps, and we got $750,000 from CDBG from the state, but we're still $800,000 short. We're looking at the ARPA funding that we're getting to help with that, and then borrow the rest.
How much are you getting ARPA funding?
I think it's like $300,000 or $270 or something like that. It's a significant amount of money.
Yeah, your requests definitely are a priority for ARP funds. Qualify.
Yeah, we felt they met the economically challenged,
Right.
and it's water and sewer projects.
Water
Yep.
and sewer.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's one, actually, the UV disinfection system replacement, that's one you're moving forward with.
We have to do it. Yep.
Anyway,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
Yep. And at this point, if we use our ARPA funds for the tank project, we will probably go to EPA and borrow money at this point.
Amy had a question for you.
I just was going to ask if you know if any of those water lines and the services referenced were any lead service lines?
I don't know. I would assume at that age, probably. We had the one water line on there that we didn't take records, I think, before 1923, so we don't have records of it, so we assume it's older than that. We got our money's worth out of them.
Yeah.
But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody was so nice and three-hole punched all of their.
How they know?
Oh, you did? I was like so impressed that everybody hole punched. I was like, wow.
She's not only the time cop, she's also the binder police.
Yeah.
You say it like it's a bad thing. Look at how organized she kept it.
Oh, that's good.
We appreciate that.
You really do,
All the
really do.
organization we can get. Okay, so we are
done
going to
way
recess
early.
here, and we will pick up tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more proposals to view, and then we will adjourn from there.
Right, the one with Nate Empick with the Park District, now that's going to involve the projects, also the sanitary is involved with, correct?
The 3 that the park has asked for, there's a benefit to sanitary
Right.
from an access to
Access point,
existing
right,
utilities,
got it,
but
okay.
not new utility construction.
And you'll
necessarily.
be able to speak to that if we need to, okay, got it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we are recessed until tomorrow at 3.
I did receive
Thank you,
an email
everyone.
from Nate that he's got some additional information that he's bringing tomorrow, so he sent it to me and I'll forward it.
It was nice to see.